I got the essential oil diffuser, popping some smell goods into the atmosphere. And but yeah, man, it's I think it's about time to have more of a dedicated space to this important work.
Oh yeah, it's been a while since I've been to the Crockett Cave, but I'm having a hard time remembering where the office location is. Is it where
front of the house?
What's her name used to live?
Yeah. It's been empty ever since. So I figured it's time to use it. Cleaned out a bunch of things that were in here that weren't necessary, and there you have it.
It looks great. It looks like a nice clean slate.
Yeah, indeed.
From which to build a nice LCC. What do you call the can't be an office, if it's going to be in keeping with cave terminology. What would the pondering pocket of Crockett?
There you go. Pondering pocket.
Speaking of looking great, how about that Christmas gi you got going on there, buddy?
Yeah, it's that time of the year, and it makes me look super fucking ripped over here, dude. So I'm looking pretty good in this thing, dude. Shoulders are popping out. I think it's the lighting, perhaps, also, or just might be those fucking kettlebells.
No, I'd say that from what I can tell, you've been on a consistent stretch of good health. I can't say the same. Every time you've been texting me, you're talking about the Whoop strap, and you're taking your training very seriously. But I would say that that's something that you've always done, but you're also taking your resting seriously, and you're implementing specific fitness modalities at specific times, which I think is a change. And if we're speaking from a strictly aesthetical perspective, yeah, you definitely look like you're putting on some muscle mass. You look healthy. You look energized, and that's good.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say say it's working? Yeah.
I think so. I mean, obviously, there's some fine tuning to be had, and as I indicated earlier, I was not alarmed, but I was a little put off by how it rates your exertion with like weight training and such. Because I did a heavy kettlebell training this morning, and it came in with 150 calories for an hour of, I wouldn't say ultra heavy. I didn't break out the 90-pound Bigfoot, but I kept it real with the 40 to 80 pounds throughout, different exercises for at least 55 minutes, 5-minute warm up, which could be a little longer, but I will have to talk more about my new protocol on warming up as well. There's actually an article in leftcoastcaveman.com under fitness modalities that highlight the McGill Big Three, which I've been using prior to prime my body, the core, for lifting and bracing especially when you're going to be lifting heavy weights and doing full body movements that could be risky to your back. And I think it is a game changer. Obviously, we'll talk more about that another time. But yeah, man. So it was interesting to see that 150 calories for an hour of weight training. I think it has something to do with heart rate. Obviously, when I think it calculates your caloric expenditure based off heart rate. And when you're lifting heavy, generally speaking, you're going to have longer rest periods between sets. You're not going so much for the burn. You're going more so, which you will get a burn, of course, but more so you're going for muscle failure and going for, amount of reps you can get in, which might be anywhere from, in certain parts of my Turkish get-up towards the end, I was only doing reps of 1 because it's just so heavy. 1 on each side, rest, and continue from there. So that, you get adequate amounts of rest. The heart rate gets to, regulate back down to probably, I think 90 beats per minute, which isn't my average, but when you're somewhat working out, that seems to be my average. So I was just a little taken aback by that because, I don't know how accurate that is. So I think that's a call out for the Whoop people.
Yeah, indeed. It's exciting as we're turning over into the new year. We're here at Left Coast Caveman. I will surprise you to say that we've been at this since 2017. And, we're always trying to look for new ways to increase fitness modalities, nutritional modalities, and mentalities. And this is integrating the technology. Again, this is the Left Coast part of the Caveman. It's what tools are available to us right now to achieve supreme levels of being. What are the gimmicks out there to avoid? It seems like we found a lot of good value in some of these technological platforms and how to use them and And you're doing some good research, and you say you posted a detail of that at leftcoastcaveman.com.
That's correct, sir. You can find it under under fitness modalities, and the article is titled Recovery, Man or Machine.
Man or machine.
The whole point of that article is to talk about just that singularity of combining man and machine to optimize, to get to levels maybe that weren't available before. Or, I mean, once again, you get what you measure. And as we talked about on the last cast, I think that's one of the biggest benefits is having a certain higher degree of machine-like learning to help optimize your workouts, your recovery, your rest to optimize and become that man and machine.
And I think that too. What's that? Oh, I thought I heard a little something. I thought I might have accidentally cut you off, but I think too it's the technology that, like we discussed on the last cast, short circuits the process for people, and that's part of our technology. If you think of Left Coast Caveman as a technology in and of itself, and the way that we're developing, it's like, look, we're not coming out with anything new here. Maybe we do as we put our own spin on things, but we're really hunting and gathering all of the information out there and making it its own technology and ease of use for our audience and for people who are just regular people who want to learn how to best optimize their health, best optimize their nutrition, and have a better way of life from a mental standpoint. It's a quick snippet of, I mean, we talk a lot about like the health influencers out there and how they do a lot of things that maybe would put off like the regular working man or regular dad mode type guy or gal, the Left Coast Cave ladies out there that just maybe won't listen to somebody who is part of that kind of woo-woo science, or you name it, all the influence out there, and putting it in the form of a technology to every single day have some kind of an implementation. We are in and of itself kind of a technology, if you think of it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the content that's out there is misleading, and it could downright frustrate people. I think if you're looking at some of these idols, these effigies to fitness, and I mean, I can definitely appreciate what they've done from from their visage, from their body, from what they've accomplished. But like, let's keep in mind that working out is generally their job. That's what they do all day long. They diet, they work out. A lot of times they're not juggling another career on the side. They're not juggling a family of, 4. I mean, just, it's a whole different lifestyle. And not to say that I don't pay respect to that, but let's also face it. A lot of these guys are also on, they claim health, they claim, hard work and all, which no doubt I'm sure they do put in hard work, but let's face the facts. There's probably a lot of supplements going on that are not necessarily legal or healthy for you that are being used to achieve that, because, hey, that's important to them. That's their business card, their body. And, and I think oftentimes you find that, to achieve that, it's an inordinate amount of time and pharmaceuticals to get there. And what I like about what we're doing is we're providing a version of that where it's healthy and it's also it's doable. This kind of health, this type of feeling, this performance, it's available to everyone. And you don't have, maybe you won't ever look like V Shred or the Liver King, but there's fucking a reason for that, because these guys are juiced up on supplements. And once again, I'm not mad at supplements. Hey man, those things work. If that's your goal and you want to fucking look like that, absolutely get some. And I think they're easier to get than ever before. You can go to your doctor and say, my testosterone's low. I need some testosterone supplementation, and I guarantee you they'll write you a script for it. So that's I think one of the more important things that we do is we provide a user interface, the technology, as you pointed out earlier, that will help the everyday person achieve that. I mean, at the end of the day, what's it really about, man? It's like feeling good, optimizing, getting done whatever you want to get done, achieving what you want to get done, and also, hey, it doesn't hurt to look good. It doesn't hurt to look good while you're doing it, and that reflection of looking good, that's oftentimes a really great sign that you're healthy.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into kind of one of the mentality pieces I want to talk about today, because if you think about the Left Coast Caveman way of life and what we represent, supreme being through modern hunting and gathering, it really is an everyday thing. And there's no bullshit. We are still primitive human beings living in a modern environment, like it or not. And all of this gimmicky influencer bullshit that we see around us, is just somebody who's better at hiding their bullshit than the average person, and they use tactics to get people to respond. Whether it's fear-based, we talked about courage and fear on the last cast. Using people's primordial minds to give them some kind of a gimmick of here, buy this supplement and it'll make you look like this, and that's the brilliant of the marketing behind it. But here we are getting on the cast, and look, I'm smoking a Aging Room Nicaragua cigar. There are no affiliations that we have on this cast, but if you're going to indulge in stuff, like, we're going to be honest about it, okay? Like, we're not claiming that we're perfect. We're just claiming that we implement these ways of life into our every single day routine. So if I'm going to have a little bit of a if I'm going to smoke tobacco, I'm not going to smoke bullshit. I'm going to smoke a 2019 cigar of the year, Aging Room Nicaragua, pure tobacco. You don't inhale them. They're fine. We can talk about everything. We could talk about the Yogi tea. 'Tis the season, my friend. All of these bugs going around, and I got echinacea tea. We can talk about every little thing that we do that optimizes our well-being, and we're actually just regular people that implement this stuff in the nutritional modalities, the fitness modalities, and the mentalities. And it's like, why is it important for every day? And really, if you think about it, all three of those things combined, the mentality, and you're like, oh yeah, it doesn't hurt to look good. Why? Well, that feeds into the mentality piece. You carry yourself a little bit different. You have that X factor. Then all of a sudden, you start getting promotions, or you start getting the things in life that you're seeking to accomplish. You're getting that extra little wind in your sails. And I'm trying to get my sister to send me a note that I wrote to her daughter back in 2017 when we first started this. And it was on that subject. It was on she was getting picked on in school, right? And, she's in high school. And I wrote her this note that essentially was right after you and I accomplished the Beast World Championships in Tahoe. And you remember how much of a motherfucker that was. And it was, but achieving that level of fitness accomplishment in a year, because we had done 3 races together, I think, or a couple of races together, but I'd done, I think, like 6 that year. It propelled me into a new way of life. So rewind the tape, Left Coast Caveman 2017. We were both going through a transformation, if you will, of just starting to kind of figure this stuff out and figure out, well, you look better. You're going to start doing better with the Left Coast Cave ladies, let's say. You're going to start carrying yourself with a little bit more confidence, but also this is all kind of bullshit. And really what's important is sticking to your primitive way of life and achieving a fulfillment in life, identifying a path that is worthwhile, accomplishing worthwhile objectives along that path, and learning along the way and implementing as you go as a way to accelerate that process. And then you achieve more, and like you knock off the next level, and you knock off the next rung, and like it only accelerates itself. But speaking of it in the context of like that letter and why that subject came up, of why have some kind of a program that you implement, was in that context of being bullied or being picked on, or just feeling like either your peers are physically or mentally or verbally attacking you, and it's getting into your well-being. And my position to her was at the time, and this is another conversation that I'm having with my nephew, who's younger now. He's a male, she was female, but both experiencing kind of a similar kind of situation where your peer groups are attacking you in those ways. And I said, look, is he working out every single day? Is he doing something physical every single day? No. Well, there's your first step. Next, it's the nutrition and the mental well-being, but that's what we try to achieve every single day. and I'll get off my rant box to give you a little bit of room here, but like that to me is where it starts, is like, you're not going to care what other people think about you if you start knocking that off. And you'll notice a difference in how you carry yourself, and the world reacts differently to you when you take that first step and you start implementing that program. And that's another reason why I feel like what we're doing is so important, is trying to give people that daily bite of nutritional modality, fitness modality, and mentality, because it's important to a lot of people for a lot of different things, but specifically that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's no secret that the herd, it calls itself, okay? And what I mean by that is the herd, it picks out the weak ones. It sees them. And when you're not achieving at that triune of, mentality and modality and nutrition, you reflect that in your body, in your vessel, and the herd, it'll pick up on it, and you'll be targeted. And I don't understand all the different psychological machinations of why people bully, why this is a thing, but I assume it has something to do with just noted weakness. And as a group, we know that, you are only as strong as your weakest member. And I wouldn't say that it's to help out that person, but it certainly can serve as a wake up call, as a direct result of what you've been doing up to that point, saying, hey, maybe I need to take a look inside and figure out why I'm being picked out of everyone else. Why am I being, abused mentally, physically, whatever that is. And this is something that happens from very early age. I don't understand it, but kids, you sit at a playground long enough, you've got children, and you sit at playgrounds. I watch it. It's interesting. And that means, and it doesn't stop with childhood. I mean, this is something that goes into manhood. I mean, or, womanhood as you get older. I mean, I think that there are differences in gender in terms of how bullying happens, and sometimes not, but it's a clear and present signal, I think. And as you indicated with your nephew, it's like, well, is he working out? No. Okay. Is he eating right? Maybe not, is he playing sports? Is he building those connect? I mean, there's a lot of things going on. And I think it's so important, because once you assume that position of weakness, of the bullied, of the person that's being predated upon, I mean, it can stick with you all throughout life, and that could lead into your career. Now you're that guy at the office that's a bit diminutive and maybe not as confident. And I mean, the list goes on of how that can affect so many different aspects of your life. Yeah, you might not have your choice pick of women, of mating partners, and that's a fucking problem. And so getting that straight early on, imperative, critical. As dads, we know this. I mean, that's why, I train my son almost every day. We're out there. We're having fun though. He's 8, so it's not as serious as, maybe a high school athlete or, a collegiate athlete or whatnot that's training with this destination. But right now it's more of an indoctrination to fitness, and that, embracing the suffering and having fun with it, and digestible bites that don't turn them off or not yelling, but as a way to cultivate the next generation of leaders, of strong men, strong women. And the good news is about this is you can be bullied all your life, and you can literally turn it around probably within a year. With a year and a half, you could be a totally different person based off of following, sharpening up all three, back to the mentality, the modality, and that nutrition, that holy triad right there. It could take you places.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I mean, as you already kind of mentioned, it's the physical part of it, but it's definitely starts with the mental. And I think that you raise an interesting point as to why, in observing this in human behavior. And there's definitely something primitive and hierarchical going on at a very early age that, let's say, and I don't pretend to be an expert on psychology or bullying in general, okay? But from my experience and from what I can observe is that it starts with a sense of hierarchy, both men and females, in different hierarchies. And the ones who get singled out the most, that I can tell, are either at that lowest rung in their, let's call them easy pickings, and that's just tragic and needs to be dealt with. But then there's Then there's also, and you can assume that it's the weakest within the group that are picking on the weakest. But if you're singled out for no other reason than that nobody can really identify, I would say it tends to be the higher performers or people who are perceived as threatening. Myself, I've been target of rumors in the corporate environment or just slander amongst little clique groups because I'm a high performer. I'm a threat to the hierarchy, the established hierarchy. You start somewhere new, you become a threat. It's gonna happen, and then there's gonna be people that work against you politically, behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, because you are of value. So I think like the cave meditation on this piece is, if first of all, there's no room for any of that in the Left Coast Caveman way of life, because understand that you're a valuable human being within some kind of ecosystem. We've talked about ecosystems in the past. You can look up Left Coast Caveman YouTube channel, ecosystems, for that discussion. You're a valuable constituent of some ecosystem. Understand that and own that. Once you understand that and own that, know what your purpose is and what you're working towards, and work on those objectives. And if we've talked about in the ecosystem before too, if there are individuals who are not positively contributing to that, or activities or objects or anything, remove them. Remove them from yourself physically, remove them from yourself mentally. Don't allow them to get under your skin, so to speak. Like, the first thing you need to do as a cave implementation is not allow these things to even deter you at all whatsoever. That might end the threat right there, because somebody's not going to continue if this person is, or this, let's say, the perpetrator of any kind of bullying or slander or anything like that is intelligent. They're going to notice, well, this is not affecting this person. My efforts are worthless here. I think where my nephew goes wrong, or where somebody else in this scenario goes wrong, or somebody who wants to be accepted goes wrong, is allowing it to bother them and then responding to that. And then guess what? That person, the person who's committing that, is in control. And so they just won. So the first step, the cave meditation part of the mentality piece, I would say, is being focused and reorienting yourself as, look, I'm not a piece of shit. They're picking on me because I'm a threat, because I'm awesome in some way that they can't achieve. So they're trying to use this tactic to knock me down. And so as long as I own my value, and then don't let it distract you. Easier said than done. I think where it then shifts into the next part, which could go into our fitness modality, and what you've already discussed you're doing with your son already at 8 years old, is when that threat then does not go away, or that threat, like, you're not allowing it to bother you, but then, especially as young males, I would say more often, my experience, the threat then becomes physical, or it continues. And then an important part of that hierarchy is standing your ground and allowing no space for that, and letting it be known that this is not going to happen to me. Somebody comes up to you in a car and you got your girl and they're talking shit to your girl. It's up to you as a man to stand in between them and let them know. You don't say, at that point, you're not like, hey, let's just not let this guy bother us. No, my opinion, and you could differ if you'd like, but it's up to you to then let people know that you're physically capable of putting this to rest if they don't allow themselves to be gone in that scenario. And that's why I think combat training, or what you were talking about with as a part of fitness modality in the Left Coast Caveman way of life, that frequent combat training is important.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, I'm a bit conflicted. Maybe not. I mean, I think there's a few different ways of looking at it. I'm a big fan of standing your ground, obviously. You have to. And many times in life, you're going to have situations where, you're going to have a choice, and you should make the more difficult choice, well, both are difficult, of walking away and or engaging in physical combat of some sort. And I think there's a time and place for it. Oftentimes, and it happens much less now, but I don't get into physical confrontations. I opt out. 99% of the time, I opt out. And this hasn't always been the truth. I've definitely have chosen poorly in many different domains. But now my prerogative is absolutely not. And the reason for this is because I've gained an appreciation is, through my years of martial arts training. And one of my favorite phrases, is those undercover black belts. They're out there. I get my ass kicked by 140-pound black belts that look like dorks oftentimes. And they make me look real dumb. And I'm, say 50 pounds on them, and there's nothing I can do. There's literally nothing. And granted, undercover black belts, there's not a lot out there, but it's something I think of whenever somebody's running their mouth, or if I have that urge, I feel it boiling in me that I want to do something physical to somebody who's, for whatever reason, said something my way that I don't quite agree with, or insulted somebody that's close to me, or whatever that, or cut me in line or whatnot. I always pause a bit and think, that could be a black belt right there, and to extend it more realistically, because probably sub 1% of the population trains martial arts, right? So it's not really I guess, super practical to look at that. But that person could also shore up that skill set gap by having a weapon, a gun, a knife, by having a group of people, and these are things where it gets dangerous. And it's really coincidental we talk about this because one of my associates, he actually just got arrested on Tuesday for fighting and you do some jujitsu in real life. And I don't know the whole story of it. Details are still coming, but it sounds like a mess, especially at this age. You don't want to be going to jail at a bar from a bar fight. That's not what you want to do. And he's lucky that nobody was hurt, and that and I don't think anyone's pressing charges, and I don't think he's going to get fired from work. But I do exercise a high degree of caution in these situations. But also, I think I'm able to do that because I have a certain degree of calmness in these situations where, if it does get physical, I'm not cowering away. My body language isn't indicating that, I'm afraid or I feel like I'm in danger. And I think that's a huge deterrent in any sort of, confrontation is to have that visage, that presence, and that's not to say I won't speak up. If somebody cuts me in line, hey man, the line's back there every time. There's certain things you don't allow. And of course, it's not like, oh, this guy's doing it because he wants to fuck me over. Chances are he wasn't paying attention, but I need to let him know that, right? Because if you allow that to happen, you're going to allow a lot of other things in life to happen just like that. And before you know it, now it's not just a chance occurrence. Now it's a fucking thing that happens. People are going to do that to you. They pick up on that. Once again, the herd culling the herd here. So, there is like a fine line of standing your ground. And once again, if the guy, wants, there's I would say a situation where even if he says, well, fuck you, man, and I'm at Costco, I might let it go. More than likely, 99%, I'll probably let it go because this guy might be a little unhinged if he wants to fight in a Costco, because he cut me. What's this guy? And we all know, prisons are full of people that literally didn't have the foresight to make good decisions, and allow that primal urge that was maybe never, attenuated by, martial arts training or by a good role model or, just some people make really bad decisions, and I'm cautious of that. So it's a fine line, and I think it's better often than not to stand your ground and project that power if you have it. And if you don't have it, you can acquire it. It's a practice like all other things, but it's super important, man, because those patterns that you can get into, they can manifest more often, and people will pick up on it. And who wants to live in a life of that, right? I certainly wouldn't. And I know for a fact, Mr. Forrest, that you do not. You're a man of stature, and well, to say the least, you don't take any shit from people. I know this about you, maybe to a fault. I don't know. So I know you've had a recent situation that's kind of germane to this conversation. That actually spurred this conversation.
Yeah, well, I think you and I are cut from a similar mold. Obviously, we wouldn't be on this path together if not. But you raise a few interesting points, and I think that the herd calling the herd in the conversation that you're having about context, in specific contexts, I want to do my best to draw a specific cave implementation based on that, on combat training and the whens and the wheres and how to speak up and when to speak up. And to me, I'm by myself in a Costco and someone's in a bad mood and lips off to me, I'm likely to let that go. I'm not looking for a fight. In the scenarios of combat training, I'm not combat training for the sake of attacking another human being on this earth. And I've always told people that the best thing to do is to have situational awareness and quick feet to get away from any kind of situation, right? But you also have to understand that there's differences in each one of those contexts that you present. And I think standing for what's right in the moment matters. And yeah, all of these human beings here are patiently waiting, and this individual feels like they're more important and can get in front. Is that a situation where you, as a left coast caveman and the apex human being in that situation, do you take the apex position and say, listen, the line is back there? Depends, right? If the guy comes up and he's got tattoos up his neck and looks like he's just fresh out of the penitentiary, I'm probably not going to say, hey, look, the line's back there. To your point earlier, some people got that way by not making good decisions, and they could be wielding a gun. You have to trust your gut on these situations. But in that same situation, though, you're walking home from the bar with your girl, your left coast cave lady on your arm, and a man approaches with tattoos up his neck, that same man, and you know that it's a threatening situation. You're expected to lay your life down for that woman. You know, best thing is, can we get out of this? Answer to that is no. You got to be prepared. And I know we started this with a bullying conversation, but again, does somebody cross the line of what's right? And okay, if you're a kid in school and somebody's just picking on you or saying stupid shit, stay on your path. Don't let this individual deter you from your path. But if the line gets crossed on what's right and what's wrong, I think that at Left Coast Caveman, I would promote, we train because human beings over the course of thousands of years have to stand sometimes physically in between what's right and what's wrong. And you have to be prepared for that because you don't know when it's coming or how it's coming. Be smart, be contextual, but like when there's a situation between right and wrong, I'll tell you my situation. You can tell me if I was just having a bad day or if it was really right or wrong. All right, so I'm in Arizona and I've got my two sisters in the car. And again, anytime I'm with my Left Coast Cave ladies, I'm in a position to stand between what's right and what's wrong for their sake, for my sake, but I'm there to make sure that they're okay, we're all okay, right? On the apex in the car. And there's two lines of traffic trying to get out of a parking garage at an airport. And clearly something's wrong with the right lane. It's not, the arm's not going up. It's sitting there forever. You can look in the rear view and the line is snaking up the whole thing. People are starting to lay on their horns. People are getting over from the right lane to the left lane because that's what's going to have to happen now, all right? It's like, it's time. We got to start moving traffic over into the left. It's time to start moving people over so that people can get out of this parking garage. The right thing to do. I got my left turn signal on. The guy behind me on the left speeds up and passes, so I can't get over. What an asshole. Okay. So I keep my turn signal on, looking at my sisters like, can you believe that? That guy was such a jerk. They're not, couldn't believe it. The guy behind him, once there's a gap, does the same thing. and then tries to not make eye contact. They're just not making eye contact. At that point, I'm getting a little bit irritated. Like, are these people in Phoenix, Arizona for real? Even in California, we all know in this situation, it becomes every other car. Oh yeah, thanks. Yeah, this sucks. Yeah, let's get out of here together, right? So then I roll my window down and I look behind me because I'm at that point like, the next guy's got to let me in, right? Like, he probably saw these other two dicks do this. Now's my turn, clearly, right? He goes to do that, and then I stick my arm out and go, no, you stop. And he lips the words, you fucking asshole, to me. And I'm like, I'm a fucking asshole. I was like, really? And then I start yelling. I'm like, all right, then do something about it. Do something about it then. And I start getting, going to like lean. I'm out of my window at this point. Do something. And then I stop him and I'm yelling at him. My sisters are like, Mark, all right, it's time to pipe it down a little bit. And then I start letting people in front of me. And I'm looking at the guy in the window. I'm like, nope, this guy can go in front of me too. When are you going to do something? Yeah, you can go ahead of me. Do something, guy. He didn't do anything. But had he gotten out of his car, ready to do something, I'm ready. I implement combat training into my routine almost every day in some format. And it was jiu-jitsu once a week when I'm healthy, hitting the mats once a week, hitting striking almost every day. And just strength training in general. But in those moments, I think the nicest thing that a lady's ever said to me was, one of the nicest things a lady's ever said to me is like, when I'm with you, I feel safe. And I think part of that is having the humility, like you were talking about, of not being a loose cannon and just being crazy and just being like, oh, we're gonna fuck somebody up now. But when you're a warrior and you're ready, any given time, tact, strength, skill, it matters. And so I would say that any given human being, bullied situation or not, it does something to your physiology. Clearly you're going to look better, like you said at the beginning of this, but you're also going to just have the confidence. And this is what we talked about before, is like, yeah, undercover black belts are out there. Do I go through my daily life thinking about that? No. I think I have to fill in my mind like David and Goliath. Like, I know there's Goliaths out there. If you're in the middle of a fucking alley and you get approached by three men, you're in a David Goliath situation, dude. You can't go in there thinking, you gotta go in there thinking I can fuck these guys up, because you don't know when that might deter the situation altogether. And you don't know when you might be able to obtain some kind of superhuman psycho like abilities in that situation, just by having the confidence of thinking, in any given situation, I'm ready. I'm battle ready. Be battle ready. Cave implementation. Be battle ready.
Yeah. It literally can escalate to a point of life and death, meaning if you're not battle ready, you could die. Somebody could punch you and you fall backwards and you crack your head in the cement and you're gone. Like those things can happen. So it's probably not as emphasized as it should be. And I honestly think that if more people did martial arts, it would be a much safer world out there. Because one, most people would realize, hey man, I understand what somebody that trains often can do to me, but also, it's amazing to me how many people think they know how to fight and they try to fight, but they don't actually know how to fight. And I think a lot of it is posturing, and once pride gets in the way, they're like, fuck it, and they overestimate their ability to actually, excel in combatives. And I myself found myself that most of the fights I've been in prior to martial arts training, I didn't do very well, but for whatever reason, I was thinking, I got this. I got this. I'm going to do battle outside of a California pizza kitchen in San Francisco. This is the right answer. I'm going to go challenge 2 guys right now. That's the right answer. No, stupid. Why? I mean, once again, I fell victim to that. And is it testosterone? Is it being a young man? Probably. A little bit of crazy in there too, which isn't a bad thing. That spirit to go to war with somebody, and granted, this, the guy they were there, doing some inappropriate things in front of my lady at the time. And to your point, man, when a lady's in the mix, or when a child, I can only imagine with a child as well. A man will do crazy things. A man will muster some courage that maybe he didn't even think he had inside. And what my thought on that is, if that does happen, how great is it that you actually have a skill set that you could deploy at that very moment and diffuse a situation and return balance back to the world, right? Because I think a lot of times what happens is we live in a world, and this is really germane to that situation you had at the parking garage in the airport, where these people were living without consequence. Meaning they knew very well, anonymously, they can get away with being really shitty to another person. Nothing was going to happen to them. And I think we live in a world where people think, I could talk shit to this guy, I could disrespect him, nothing's going to happen to me. And I think sometimes that ultimate balance is when somebody steps and goes, no, you're not going to do that. And maybe that person learns a very hard lesson that day, getting choked out, or their arm busted, or whatever it might be, super embarrassed in front of their people, or and they might think twice the next time. Like, I shouldn't run my mouth. I shouldn't do stuff like that, because that guy got out of his car and beat the shit out of me. And at some level, you probably know you had it coming. And I think more of that needs to happen to maybe right the balance, where people are a little more, maybe have some humility, maybe have a little more just humanity with them, to know that we're part of a bigger community, and you can't get away with that kind of shit. And I just think so many people get away with it that it becomes a habit, until someone like yourself says, no, I'm going to regulate this situation. And I think there is definitely a benefit to more of that in this world. Now, granted, do I always want to be that guy? No, that's a dangerous role to play. But I think as a man, there's certain situations where it's inexcusable not to.
Yeah, very well put. Very well put. And I think that your point about there being more martial arts training. So again, the cave implementation, be battle ready. The how-to is be part of a program of some sort, or some sort of, me, it's all garage work, because I'm at different places all the time. I've got skilled trainers such as yourself that can help me and help my technique. But YouTube is a great resource too. And learning, work with somebody at some point, get into some formal type of training, battle ready training. And I think that it accomplishes 2 things. I like your point about it. It does make it a safer world, because was that guy an undercover black belt? Chances are not. Why? Because I've noticed that people who become mature within the martial arts community are less likely to run their mouth. Like me, like you. I could snap. I know. I can feel it in most situations that I could. I have the confidence too of like the David and Goliath. There's a reason why I got David tattooed on my back. It's somebody who I hold in very high regard. I was named after David, of that warrior mentality of, look, I can fight through any situation. But the humility that comes with martial arts training is, look, when I'm on the mats with you, I'm fucking ragdoll, and like having that humility and having that sense of battle all the time, and being exposed to it creates a more humble person. So like in that situation, I'm not concerned that guy's a black belt, because that's not what black belts do. They don't go running their mouth to people and like doing what's wrong. You have a sense of what's right and wrong. It kind of instills that in you. You get disciplined physically. And that's how human beings used to live, right? We used to, tribal people, that's how you gained rank. That was your rite of passage as a man in a tribe in Celtic Ireland. Like, there was not a choice. This world is made of warfare. You fight, young man. You learn to fight. That's in our blood as Irish folks. That's what I'm instilling in my son and yours. It's different for my daughters, although I still try to instill that in my daughters. Like, look, your middle name is what? They'll tell you, Danger. Be dangerous. Be somebody that people respect physically. with that, I think the combat training is important. I know that you're a fan of jiu-jitsu, but I know you've also trained Krav Maga. I mean, I really like striking. I like it all, really, for different reasons. Muay Thai, I mean, I like the kicks. I like the distancing. I like the angles. The more you expose yourself to, the more you get skilled in hand-to-hand combat, and not for the sake of using it, but for the sake of, like you said, like wielding those skill sets in any given moment when they're when they're needed. I think judo is judo the one with, like, you learn how to throw people?
Yep.
I mean, that's one that I would love to explore too, but I think find something. Cave implementation, find something and implement it. Become a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, and the good news is, in this day and age, I mean, thanks to the UFC, I mean, mixed martial arts, I mean, it's a thing now. It's not obscure. I mean, you don't have to go very far to find a really great jiu-jitsu gym nowadays. I would say you'd be hard-pressed, at least in California. I can't speak for other states, but you couldn't go 10 miles without a gym probably being nearby. I mean, they're everywhere. They're ubiquitous. It's awesome. It's a renaissance for martial arts training. And I think one caveat I would say, and yes, I mean, in the absence of being able to go to classes, hitting a bag, that's awesome, or training or wherever you can. One cautionary note that I would say about it, though, is like, and that's why it kind of pisses me off when you see like some of these these women defense classes where they have like a 3-hour seminar, and they teach them to say no and kick the groin, and they get to hit the fucking guy with the big styrofoam head. He's got a stick and he's doing all this aggressive behaviors. Unfortunately, I don't think that. I mean, you and I, we've been in fights all throughout life. I mean, that's coming from various areas of danger in where we lived, schools and all that. I mean, it was just we gained some experience as we went, which is, I think, it's awesome. But if you don't know like combatives, if you haven't been in a fight and you take a 3-hour course, you're probably still not going to react the way you would want to react in a situation. And one thing that it's kind of unfortunate, but it's not. But I think if you want to become like adept at any sort of martial arts where you can actually use it in a high stress situation, you're going to have to train a lot. It's one of those things, like, for a few years to develop an actual like acumen of skill set where you could deploy it in a really stressful situation with. And what's even crazier is with someone that's not trained, because they're going to move in a different way than you're used to when you're boxing with your friends who have technique, or when you're, sometimes when I roll with new white belts, not to say I don't do well, but it's like, whoa, you're riding some chaos because this person's doing shit that you're not used to somebody doing because they're not trained. And not to say you can't subdue them and whatnot and be successful eventually, but it's different. But it's being able to have that calmness in the chaos, and to be able to restore some order, i.e. by a rear naked choke or an armbar. But I want people to think that if you and I think everyone, I'm an advocate for everyone. You should be taking at least some sort of devoting yourself to one martial arts class 2 days a week minimum. And I think after a few years, you could have a skill set that you could deploy if needed. But I think if you're just hitting the bag once in a while, I mean, it's better than nothing. But I think that we should all strive, and especially this day and age where these opportunities to train with these great masters of the arts and is everywhere. You should do that, especially as a male, because you're going to get in a fight one day. You should get into a fight one day. You really should. I mean, hopefully you get in all those fights when you're younger and there's less consequences, right? But you should. Those are some lessons. And plus, those are fun stories to talk about, man. I look back at all the fights I've been in, and not to say I'm not a rough and tough guy. I'm somebody that's been picked on all my life. I mean, I wore metal braces on my legs. I had fucking acne on my face, scrawny string bean motherfucker. And I used to get picked on all the time. And for whatever reason, I had a little bit in me that said, fuck you. I think it was just as many times I watched my dad box on the side of Highway 4 for, road race incidents. And, you learn like, that's what I'm going to do. And it didn't work out for me most often. But I look back and go, well, I didn't take any shit. I got my ass kicked a lot, but I went after it. And that was, once again, from those results, like, hey, I should seek out some training. Thus, filling in the place with, training and a life of a martial artist. And, it'll change your life. But yeah, that's my big, like, cautionary note to people is just, if you're going to want to develop those skill sets, you're going to need to put some time, a couple hours a week, minimum.
Yeah, I agree. And I learned from a lot of losses too, man. I got my teeth kicked in several times, but that was the thing too. I mean, when you're talking about men and hierarchies within men, I can only speak to that because I'm not a female, obviously. But there is some value in just being that guy. I mean, look, I got my ass kicked and then I was respected. And that's something that I can't urge enough. I mean, as a young man being in high school or that kind of age, I mean, that's tough, but the implementation is important. Be combat ready. And I couldn't agree with you more when it comes to pick something and dedicate yourself to it and be consistent. Don't just hit the bag once a week and think that that's sufficient. Like run through your drills, run through your technique and do it every single day. And like, that's the only way to get better and to get that muscle memory. And again, not for the sake of wanting to deploy it, but just for the sake of, look, this is base level. Like I told my daughters, the world is made of mostly water. You're going to learn how to swim. The world is like it or not. There's a lot of good out there, but there's also a lot of chaos and evil and mean people doing dumb shit. And there's the only reason tyranny doesn't exist is because strong men stand in the way of it. Could be somebody cutting in a line. Could be somebody doing wrong to a female. You don't know when you're going to be in a situation on a bus, at a sports venue, at the grocery store, and a micro tyranny occurs, and it's up to you as a left coast caveman to stand in the way of it. Gotta be ready, and yeah, be consistent. Cave implementation. Pick a formal art. Pick several. Get taught and implement. I like you're at minimum twice a week. It sounds like a good number to me. The more the better. Integrate it into your exercise routines. Run through the moves. If you're warming up, I haven't read your warm up article yet, but integrate some of your jiu-jitsu practice into your warm up. I do that a lot, just to maintain that muscle memory, get that movement down, keep those joints lubed.
Yeah,
I got to get back to it, man, because I'll tell you, the holidays are upon us, and the Left Coast Cave lady running the Left Coast Cave over here cooked a bunch of cookies. I'm outside smoking cigars. The nutritional piece is important as well because none of that shit works if you're not in prime shape. And I think the 80% rule, or maybe I don't know what kind of rule we have on the fitness or the nutritional modalities, but it's like this time of year I also pack on a few extra pounds, and I'm kind of not on my A game, so to speak, when it comes to all the nutrition. So I'm looking forward to getting back on track with all that kind of stuff, because looking good matters too. I mean, and food is functional. Like you're going to be more confident, and that's why at the top of this cast, it's all about. I love the Left Coast Caveman way of life because it's authentic. We are not affiliated with any specific products. Just what we promote as Cave approved, based on specific criteria. We're not perfect. We're not promoting a marketing scheme. This is not a marketing scheme. This is just, look, every single day, fitness modality, nutritional modality, mentality. Get your stuff together. Start implementing right away. And the nutrition is such an important part of that because it's all interconnected. Like, yeah, if you're feeling like a piece of shit and you're feeling like, oh, they're picking on me because I'm lousy, I'm stupid, like, oh, I'm just a loser, or I don't know why they're picking on me, poor me, and you're not, you're sitting down and eating a bag of chips and sitting in front of your computer screen all day and not moving and not like getting active. Like, it's all integrated together.
Yeah.
I start feeling like a weak piece of shit if I do this for another week, man, and I'm eating cookies every day, I start feeling like a weak piece of shit. Like something starts getting in my mind. Goggins always refers to it as the inner bitch. It's like, yeah, well, look at you with your shirt off right now. You should feel that way. Like, get ironed out again, motherfucker. I should be with my skin tight gi on with my fucking muscles popping, What's the secret this week, sir?
Well, we talking nutrition, and we segueing over
nutrition.
Yeah, let's do it, man. So I'm still working through this article because once again, man, like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So I'm a protein guy. I think becoming more so because of you and some of the influences with bone broth and protein supplementation, which I'm still on the path with. I'm a big believer in it. I'm actually looking to do an experiment where I cut out lunch and I just have a protein shake every day to see how that works. Because I've done it a few times and I felt pretty damn good. And I was like, well, maybe I don't need to eat like as much at lunch. Maybe I'm overeating because I fall into this path of like, you work all morning and like lunch is kind of like my free time, my big dopamine hit of the day. The first one where I get to do something I want to do. And it's tasty and I'm not saying I'm eating shitty food by no means, but like calories are calories, right? So I'm like, dude, instead of, consuming, most of my meals are about maybe 1,800, 1,500 calories. I only eat twice a day. And I'm thinking like, fuck, man, like I do pretty well when I just have a protein shake halfway through the day. And that's maybe 300 calories, but it's protein dense. We all talked about, the TF of protein and the thermogenic effects and all that. But so one of the other avenues of protein that I look into, like one of the most perfect foods, the perfect proteins outside of like muscle flesh and organs is the egg, right? The egg. I mean, it's a beautiful protein in that, it's one of those ones I feel like I think all throughout history we've been eating eggs. We're hunting and gathering, we're hunting birds and there's just so happens to be a nest with eggs and we're scarfing those down. And then, as we became more developed and, specialization of labor and we're now domesticating animals, we realize that you can have a bunch of hens and they can produce eggs for you or whatever other animal, ducks and you can have these things at your disposal and they're just incredibly handy, nutrient dense, and I mean it's a definite staple for me. I love eggs, man. Like at minimum every day at least 2 eggs. I mean I fucking love hard-boiled eggs, and I started thinking as walking down the food aisle, the egg aisle to be specific. There's so many different eggs now, right? And so you go down that rabbit hole of, okay, we got the regular ones, you got the cage-free ones, you have the pasture-raised ones, you have organic ones. Like you can get lost, and you can start the pricing can add up, especially nowadays. I mean, I picked up they were called happy eggs, pasture-raised. They were all sorts of cool, like kind of a bluish, dark brown, purple on the outside, and these things were $7.99 for 12. Okay. And then you look at like regular eggs, just the standard barn eggs, right? Factory farm most likely. And those are maybe $4.99 for 12. And then you have your cage free, your pasture raised, all that stuff, organic, $5.79 to $5.99 in that range. So it's like, okay, well, I'm all about paying for quality, right? But I need to make sure that I'm getting something out of it. And that's where the waters get a bit muddied with eggs because, well, what's better for you? Do you want, what are the benefits of cage-free? What are the benefits of pasture-raised, organic? And that's kind of something I've really delved into this week. And I was actually really surprised in a few different ways. So one thing, as I'm reviewing these different egg types, I went to Trader Joe's and I bought a carton of each, okay? And they didn't have standard eggs, so I had to actually look that up at Safeway. But what was interesting to me to find that there wasn't any statistically significant differences in nutrition between any of those. Okay, so from a cost of $4.99 to $7.99 for 12 eggs, nutritionally speaking, they were all the same. There was a slight difference in a few of them with like potassium and iron. I think there was a differential of 2% in one of them, which I was like, okay, I mean, is that significant? I'm not going to pay more for that, most likely. So that was really surprising. But what was also surprising was, and I can't deny this, and I'll post, as I said, I'll have the article up most likely by early next week because I have pictures, because the picture, a picture speaks 1,000 words. And what is interesting is with the cage-free, pasture-raised organic eggs, the yolks are a different color. It's noticeable. You're going to have a much darker yolk as opposed to the standard one, which is a little bit paler. So I did some research on that, and that's an indication, like the color of the yolk is definitely linked to the diet of the hen. Okay, so, and we all know like how important diet is. We talk nonstop about it, and it's a cornerstone of everything we do. And so why we think it's different with a hen, right? That egg is a resultant, is an accumulation of all the things it ate. Just like, you hear the story of people hunting bears during certain times of the year. Well, they don't hunt them during the salmon season because like the meat will actually taste like it'll have a fishy taste to it, a slight fish taste. And a lot of people prioritize hunting bears during blueberry season because it has more of a sweeter taste, and the fat actually has a purple hue during that time of the year. Okay, so it's no different with hens. Like you think about, okay, well, what's the hen eating? And so some of the conclusions I could pull, and granted, you can't really, if you go off the nutrition labels, I can't tell. It doesn't tell you, well, this yolk is more is more nutritionally dense than this one, because there's nothing metrically speaking. But the one difference is the carotenoids. You're getting a much higher concentration of, I believe it's carotenoids. Am I even saying that right? I might not even be saying that right. Carotenoids? Yeah, well,
I don't know.
Yeah, well, we don't need to get too esoteric here, but here's like the gist of it is, pasture raised. Well, actually, let me back up. Pasture raised is actually, I did some research on the USDA site, and that's one of those things that isn't at all enforceable. There's no metric behind it. Even though it puts it on there, it doesn't mean anything. There's no like standard for pasture raised. Okay, so shit can that. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that they could take advantage of that. That it's just like cruelty free. That means nothing, right? When something names it cruelty free, and you'll start seeing a lot of different brands using bullshit phrases. They'll coin a phrase and some sort of certification that means nothing. It's not held to any standard. So be wary of those. But cage free, okay, that does mean something, right? That means that the hen is not spending the majority of its life in a cage. Now, does that mean it's out in this beautiful pasture, hunting and pecking insects all day long? No, because cage free could mean it's in a barn and they're fucking still factory farmed. It's just like neck and neck with other chickens. Okay, so that's where maybe pasture raised, maybe you want to look into that. But cage free, I think, is a hard and true. You want a cage free egg no matter what. Organic, obviously, because what that means is that the feed being provided to the hen is not full of GMOs. It's not corn, and right. So you want to make sure. I mean, I'm a big fan of the organic movement. I think there's definitely something to that. So if you can get cage free, get organic, and once again, that cage free, that pasture raised, let's assume that it is, in the spirit of what it says, they're out there foraging on a wider variety of foods, different grasses and different insects. And so all of that is directly linked and reflected in the color of the yolk. That's where the carotenoids come into effect. And that's why you're going to have a darker, and that's kind of cool because, I mean, you look at that yolk and you go, okay, well, this thing had a more optimal, like naturopathic diet as opposed to eating that feed from the farmer, that whatever the GMO laden corn that they're just feeding them nonstop. So I thought that was really interesting. And granted, what I would say is I'm probably not going to spend the extra $2 for some pasture raised as opposed to just standard cage free, because the yolks look pretty much the same, at least in my small sample size. So I couldn't discern any difference. And if you look at the nutritional label, you're not going to see any difference as well. And taste wise, I'm not I don't have a very sophisticated palate, so I can't say that one tastes better than the other. But I think those two pedigrees is something you should definitely look into if you can afford it. I mean, the difference between $4.99 and $5.99, I mean, it's $1.50. I think it's worth the spend. I mean, and it's such a, you look at an egg, what is it, 60% fat, 40% protein? I mean, that's a powerful, each egg's about 70 calories, portable. You can, hard boil it, you can bring wherever you go. I mean, it's such a, eat 2 eggs and tell me you're still hungry.
It's versatile. The incredible edible egg, as they used to say. I love this topic because it lends itself well to our purpose, because nothing is more tangible in the hunting and gathering department. We talk about hunting and gathering, fitness modalities, nutritional modalities, and mentalities. Left Coast Caveman, the caveman play on hunting and gathering. We are hunter-gatherer people. Nothing is more tangible than when it comes to food, and nothing can keep yourself more rooted in your primitive self than hunting and gathering food. And I love that you've done the research. Can't wait to see the article. But an interesting topic indeed, because me specifically, I go local farms. I've noticed a difference in taste. I've noticed a difference in color of the yolk, as you've mentioned. Significantly noticeable. What's cool about what you just talked about, though, was when I'm out, which is right now, because guess what? It's wintertime. Those hens start to chill out. They're not laying as much, so we can only get them every other. I eat a lot of eggs as well, and so they're not available. So again, keeping in tune with your primitive self, look at different seasons. You should be eating different things, and that's another topic we should discuss on this cast for a future cast, would be like seasonal eating of fruits and vegetables based on what's available. But like a cursory glance, and I don't know if the carotenoids are part of it, but it's the cool thing about letting you lead this one off is I've been able to pull a few points here that kind of marry to what you were talking about. But it's a studies show, this is by backyardboosts.com. Studies show that farm fresh eggs have less cholesterol and saturated fat than those purchased from the store, but they contain 25% more vitamin E, 75% more beta carotene, and up to 20 times more omega-3 fatty acids. So beta carotene, taking it piece by piece, beta carotene converts into vitamin A, retinol. We need vitamin A for good vision and eye health, for a strong immune system, and for healthy skin and mucous membranes. The omega-3 benefits, I know we've talked about before in the cast, but just to revisit, help prevent heart disease, stroke, help control lupus, eczema, rheumatoid arthritis, and play protective roles in cancer and other conditions. That's a Harvard study published that. And then the vitamin E, the final kind of net nutritional benefit of farm fresh, is important to vision, reproduction, and the health of your blood, brain, and skin. So again, a kind of an all, like the incredible edible egg, there's a lot to it. How to get farm fresh. I mean, you you could Google farm fresh eggs near me, and I'm sure there's a farmer. Go to a local farmer's market, find out who your local farmer is. Go look at the conditions that the chickens are being raised in. They deliver them to our place.
How much do they cost? Do you know what the per egg cost is?
No.
Because the happy for the $7.99, the ultra, premier egg at Trader Joe's, it was $7.99. I think it was like 70 cents per egg. So I wonder,
I don't know,
how much you would pay for, because that sounds amazing. I'd like to get into something like that. And I'm actually in talks with one of my friends right now to split a cow, which I don't think I have the spacing for it in my freezer because I have a really small freezer. But I'm interested in that, like buying something local. And I think that's probably going to be the way of the future if you're looking to, one, cut costs because meat prices are out of control. Two, get quality meats. Also, I think there's a cool piece to it where that animal had one bad day of its whole life. You know what I mean? Like that one bad day is the slaughter day, and everything else is pretty damn cool. I like that too. Now, how much will I spend for that? We'll see. It's not a priority at this moment, but maybe it should be. And, I might look back at this one day and go, man, that's kind of shitty. I should have been more involved with making sure that the food that I ate, was happy. And we know there's nutritional benefits to that too, man. If an animal's stressed all the time, it's going to, get sick more often, going to need more antibiotics and whatnot. And there's a whole litany of different nutritional subtractions, I guess you could say, from the source. But to go back to the beta carotene, that's carotenoid as well. So that's awesome. But where it gets a little misty for me is the fact that, because I read into that omega-3, but it's like, well, what metric are they using for that? You know what I mean? It's hard to tease out. It's a great power statement, 25% more. I want to believe that, but I need to see, you know what I mean? I want to look at it outside of just the marketing, and I'm afraid sometimes that it's easier to go that marketing route. That study sounds great, and you find out that study was sponsored by fucking Ned's Organic Eggs, right? So it's that's what I'm trying to. And one of my mission statements for our audience at Left Coast Caveman is I want to do some of the heavy lifting to help sift through some of that marketing bullshit and to come away with some really clean takeaways. And at the time, and I may change this soon, depending on the amounts of research I do and my conclusions, but I haven't seen anything that's really quantifying those omega-3s. I want to believe it. I do. I do so much because I've been spending extra on eggs for such a long time. I want to believe that it makes a difference. I don't know if it does. And that's where right now I'm at a bit of an impasse when it comes to my conclusion. So, but more to come on that for sure.
Well, I think that we could conclude based on just primitive well-being and primitive ways of life, and if there's enough research out there to suggest that farm fresh, I think where you did the audience a favor was saving the money in the grocery store. Like a cave implementation of this specific nutritional modality with regard to eggs, from my perspective, would be find local farms to source them from. It should be easy enough, or if you have land, shit, do it yourself. Be in control, have a closed loop system yourself that you can. I have no idea how to do that. Maybe that's the next article. Could figure out how to DIY a chicken coop at home. I know a lot of people that do that, even in just small suburban backyards, and that seems to be a good answer. And sourcing from, it's funny that you said ways of the future, but it's technically ways of the past. I mean, people have been eating eggs for as long as we've been recording history. It's so I think that there's enough. I mean, can we scientifically prove that it's 20 times more omega-3s? Probably not. If we can find that and substantiate some of those claims, great. But I think that knowing that they're healthier in a more primitive, sustainable way of obtaining a food that's so important to us and that we eat so often for the sake of it being a complete protein and a complete food source, it has a lot of nutritional benefits outside of just protein, that the cave implementation of this nutritional modality would be find a local farm. I'm sure you have one. If not, and like say for instance, you see in my situation right now where you can't get them from the local farm, don't spend the extra money at the grocery for the one that's all the buzzwords. If there's no nutritional difference, just get whatever you can get.
Yeah, and I think one of the working conclusions I have, and I want to implement more of this in my life, but I think when it comes to sourcing your foods, like the closer those foods are to like its natural, your food's getting its natural food, the better, right? So, is a cow that eats corn all day, is that nutritionally superior to a cow that eats grass all day? Well, we know, like, no, it's not. The grass-fed cow because that diet of grass is more in line with like the history of what cows would eat. And you know what I mean? Like, so like, and same with the hens, right? Is a hen that eats GMO corn all day better than a hen that was actually out there hunting and gathering, right? Literally eating insects out there. No, I mean we want the one that's more aligned with its natural diet. So I think with anything, I mean that could even probably be to vegetables, right? What kind of dirt is it being grown in? Does it have Monsanto sponsored fucking bags, of antibiotics lying around and such, or what kind of the soil that it's grown in, right? That's for a flower, that's or a vegetable or whatever. I mean that's its food source. It's the soil. Is how close to its natural diet is it? And I think the closer you get to that, the better. Undeniably, and granted, there's so many different studies out there, and could probably speak either way to that. I mean, there's many studies out there that tell you that say that GMO is completely safe, and I don't know if I believe that. I'm still on the fence on that one. It doesn't sound right, and I mean, but look, back in the day, they told us that fat was the devil and low fat's the way to go, right? That was a big study. That was and it's in part and parcel is still like to this day accepted. There was a time when doctors were recommending cigarettes. They said these studies indicate that cigarettes are good for you, and doctors only smoke, Lucky Sevens. Like that was a fucking thing. So we have to be careful when we're parsing through this information. And I just think like it's a no-brainer to just go with foods that are more aligned with its natural foods. And I think that's a real strong like aphorism you could take away from all of this. And as like a guiding light when it comes to source hunting and gathering at your local Whole Foods or Safeway or wherever.
Indeed, and I think part of this is remembering that we are left coast, but also left coast cavemen. Sometimes the proof is in the pudding. Sometimes we don't need a double-blind scientific research study to prove how more effective you are in a street fight by combat training twice a week, every week. It's the proof is there. Sticking closer to your food source as a primitive being, and that food source being closer to its food source. Some things we can't prove with science. Some things we just know and we can feel, and we've reflected. And why we're even doing this cast and why we're even doing this project is that somewhere along the line, people started coming up to me, wow, you look good. Wow, you got a lot of energy. Wow, you're, how do you do what you're doing? And this is the answer. I can't have a study for you all the time to prove to you. I just know that when we implement these things based on what we've talked about, going all the way back to 2017 when we started doing this stuff and having these conversations about rats eating this only this specific time during the day.
I remember those.
I don't know why. I just know that.
Yeah.
And it works and it's authentic. And we can just guarantee that we will never be tied to some kind of specific study for any kind of marketing purpose. And with that, we're doing our best to parse through the data as you indicated for the left coast part. But then sometimes there's just the caveman has to kick in and be like, yeah, just kind of makes sense, right?
I mean, dude, there are some ineffable truths out there, and that's known as an instinct. And we have those. And for whatever reason, those things have been blunted, distracted, and we've been separate from them. But yeah, sometimes I do believe like that's an important piece that we, for whatever reason, have lost touch with. And this is a really great example of follow those instincts. I mean, it's kind of a common sense thing almost, but you know, we live in an age where that common sense maybe isn't as common as it was for whatever reason. So yeah, I like that, man. I think you could definitely get lost, you know, like what do they call it? The paralysis by analysis, right? That is a thing for certain. So there's some things that are just, you feel it, it's true. And this is one of them, man.
Yeah, my instinct's telling me right now, sitting out here freezing my balls off. I'm sitting outside. It's time to go in and get a hot cup of tea, bedtime tea, yogi tea. I think they're left coast people. I think they may be out of Oakland. But yeah, man, it's been good. If I don't see you before or talk to you again before the holidays, have yourself a merry little. And I know I'll see you before the new year. So we got to plan on what we're going to knock out of the park. We've had funny story before I sign off, right? The left coast cave lady that's working on some socks for us, right? Part of our New Year strategy, right, with me and you is what are we doing next? And add merch to the site, leftcoastcaveman.com is part of that. And we talked about wool socks. So then a good topic of conversation too that I'd like to discuss with you in upcoming casts is skill sets that are barterable. And, you know, when you find somebody who knows how to knit shit, you say, look, person who knows how to knit shit, got this thing called Left Coast Caveman. You think you can make me some wool socks? To which she replies, of course I can. And this individual did something nice for me this morning, you know, ran some product on a whim. You know, everybody's taking the day off, and this person went and ran some stuff for me, like got up at 5 a.m. and did some stuff. So I was trying to keep her occupied on the phone because she was doing a lot of driving for me. And I said, yeah, what are your plans for today? Oh, I'm going to this knitting store. So I said, what's the name of the knitting store? It tells me the name of the knitting store. And I call the knitting store and say, hey, this person's going to come in. This is what she looks like. This is her name. Here's my card. Whatever she gets, just put it on my card and tell her thank you for doing that favor for me this morning. And I get a call from the knitting store. And they're like, okay, do you have any idea like how it's like usually when this happens, we have to call somebody because I don't think you understand how much yarn this lady just bought. I'm like, what? And I go, whatever it is, just put it on my card. And she goes, are you sure? Because she just racked up like $750 worth of yarn. Like, dude, I'm like, what? I'm like, how does anybody do that? A, B, like, these better be some really fucking cool socks.
We're in the sock business, son.
She's in the crazy business is what it is, but I thought you'd appreciate that little story. But yeah, I mean, next steps for us is definitely getting some $1,000 socks on the site.
Hey man, available in the new year, you know, reserve them now.
Yeah, reserve them now. Yeah, just to, you know, I always throw this thing up. I didn't throw it up today, but the socks, she's like, well, maybe I can make you some socks with that. I really appreciate the gesture. I'm like, These are what the socks are gonna look like, dude.
Yeah.
Cashmere. Apparently, cashmere is like hand spun fucking cashmere or something like that, hand dyed. And whatever.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it, man. Dude, I buy expensive socks. I'm a smart wool sock kind of guy, and those things are
How much do a pair of smart wool socks go for?
$14 for one pair.
Yeah, these are gonna run like, I think, quadruple that.
So what is cashmere though?
It's apparently comes off of a specific kind of goat. Yeah, because I mean, my first thinking was this as well, was what the fuck, like. Like there's no
$700. That was probably, hey, but you just made somebody's bonus in that fucking store.
A cashmere goat produces no more than 200 to 300 grams of cashmere in a year. That's not a lot.
That doesn't sound like a lot.
And is speaking of caveman, I'm about to get a cashmere goat farm. Jeez. Start selling that milk too. During the natural molting season, it takes 3 to 4 goats to make just one coat.
Holy shit.
It's a very finite resource. There's only a certain amount produced in the world. It's rare, so it's priced accordingly. Wow.
Yeah.
This is what they look like. Let me see if I can get this up. Wait.
That's a powerful looking goat right there, dude. What a
we got a background check. Background won't work.
I saw it though. I saw it. I got a little glimpse.
It is a powerful looking goat.
That's a badass looking goat. Yeah, I'd like to wear some stuff from that guy right there, dude. I'll probably be able to like climb some extra fucking. Dude, I could probably summit K2 with those fucking with those things on my feet. Hell yeah, dude.
Well, that's what we're gonna say. That's what we're gonna say. That's it.
Oh right, man, that guy is a beast. Look at that thing.
The socks came from this guy.
I'm into it. Yeah, well, we're on to something. These are gonna be some badass socks. I can't wait to climb in them.
All right, brother.
Yep. All right, man. We'll warm up. Great talk, and well, we got a planning call or activity coming up pretty soon, so we'll talk offline about that. But yeah, appreciate you, man.
You as well, brother.
All right, buddy. See you.
Combat train.
Yup.
Combat ready. All right, later.